Welcome to the Hockomock Film Festival. I'm your host, Joe Conforti, local filmmaker from Southeaston. My guest today is Sean Davis, another local filmmaker we'll be talking to in just a minute. For the last 5 years, we've brought you the Hockomock Film Festival, Film Jam from Andrew's Bakery, and also this show, The Film Connection. The purpose of this show is pretty simple. It's to bring together filmmakers from both television and feature, and to discuss their latest projects. We've got another goal. It's to create a community of filmmakers who not only compete against one another, but who get together in different venues and can discuss their work and learn from one another. This is a great time to make movies. The digital world, which we keep talking about, has brought the cost of filmmaking down, so anybody who's got under $1,000 can get involved in making their own film, whether it's for fun or hopefully down the road if they want to become filmmakers. With that said, we'll talk to Sean. He's got some very interesting projects going on, and so I'm going to let him introduce some of these projects. We've got clips of each, so you want to talk about your 4 projects, and then we'll start looking at some clips?
Well, I had been told that people wanted to talk about xChopsticksx-Neo and nonlinear hyperdrama, which was my entry for the last one.
Mm-hmm. Can we back up just a little bit there, talk about what, because I think for some of our audience, and myself included, we need to hear that one more time.
xChopsticksx-Neo, a nonlinear hyperdrama!
Okay.
No, it's complete. I don't know. It's one of my major forays into
strengths, fortes, right? Is that?
I don't know. It's a word. My major endeavors, something into CGI.
Okay.
And trying to mix it with stop motion and a little bit of drawn animation, and it wasn't. I didn't like the way it turned out, the stop motion or the drawn animation.
So this is computer graphics we're talking about, in a highly technical part of filmmaking, relatively technical.
I don't know. I used primarily a program called Bryce 5 for editing these CG environments. That pretty much I mean, it is one of the more technical things. This is not necessarily something everybody can right out of the box do, but I mean, if you get the program and you mess with it, eventually you might be able to do something special with it.
All right, this should be interesting. Let's talk about, just so we get this in order, we have Chopsticks.
xChopsticksx-Neo, a nonlinear hyperdrama. It's a horribly long title.
Okay, so that will be interesting. Then we have
Meh.
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 Okay.
M-E-H. Meh.
And talk a little bit about Meh.
Complete stream of thought, and I was really depressed when I made it.
Okay, that covers that ground. Ghost Story Chorus.
Ghost Story Chorus elevator movement is... I brought that in to talk about my influences more of. It's a total ripoff, but not of what people think it is.
So we'll watch it and see if we can come up with it. And lastly, you have a teaser trailer for a current project, which will go unnamed for now, correct?
Yeah, major current project, which will involve 2 very famous people whose names will not recognize, especially not the name of Charles Dodgson for most people. But he's my tertiary unit director.
Okay, so let's talk about see what we have here. We're going to run, I believe, Chopsticks first.
Okay. All right, so you can hear me now.
So again, start with the nonlinear.
All right, so this is primarily animated in Bryce, and the reason why I recreated the inside of the Easton Town Hall in Bryce using a photo basis, and I basically took the town hall or whatever it was, that building, and recreated it in the world. Oh, by the way, that picture there, as the building went down, that was the entries, the winners for the entries for the 2004 Film Festival. But basically, the reason why I have that building, which is in Easton, in there, is because it needed to be shot in Easton. That was one of the requirements, and mine was animation, so it couldn't really necessarily be shot in Easton, especially if it was made in the computer. So that was my little trick to make it qualify.
How difficult is it to use that software? Because that's pretty neat stuff that you do. Animation is usually very difficult and expensive. How tough is that to use? Obviously, you're taking an image and then changing it graphically, right?
That program is a little bit more difficult. I have not really mastered it very well, and it's a lot of the CGI in there is very basic, and it's not really designed so much to do what I made it do. It's designed to make video games.
I see.
Video game environments, but I use it for this purpose anyway. It's complicated. It's not one of the easier things. I mean, I say go out and do it, and I really suggest go out and do it. Go out and find the software and mess with it.
And the name of the software again is?
Bryce 5, B-R-Y-C-E. But it's not something that's necessarily intuitive. It will take some learning.
Well, I mean, that's what you do with software like that. You need to work with it and practice with it, because otherwise you're never going to master it. And the goal of that short was, what was in your mind? This nonlinear hyper, what did you call it? Nonlinear hyper?
Nonlinear hyperdrama. I actually got that. I got that from. That's a David Bowie reference, actually, because he made this art album, this art music album thing called Outside, or the ritual art murder of Baby Grace Blue, a gothic nonlinear hyperdrama. And because the piece wasn't finished, it's not necessarily taking place in order, and it's nonsensical, which a lot of my work around that time is. It's a nonlinear hyperdrama.
Interesting. Obviously, you like the experimental.
Yeah.
What we could call avant-garde, something that seems to break the rules of filmmaking. I mean, that's kind of an exciting thing, isn't it, for you to I'm not even sure, did you study the rules of filmmaking? In order to break them, sometimes you obviously have to know them, but what's your view on that? And I want to see the next clip on conventional filmmaking, which...
Well,
it's a broad subject, I know, but obviously conventional filmmaking doesn't do it for you, or am I incorrect?
Oh, no. I mean, I've done things that I consider completely conventional. I mean, I do things that are narrative and very obviously narrative.
Oh, you
it's
do?
Just,
See, that's
yes.
interesting.
That actually was supposed to be very obviously narrative. I just ran out of time.
Time's important in the narrative.
I've only I've only really gotten better recently at writing scripts and stuff like that. So getting my story finished, I mean, I'm still learning. I was very much still learning there. I know more now, but I have a lot more to learn, and I know it.
We all do. So let's go on to meh.
More stop motion work of mine. I'm very fond of this piece. And they cut out the big... And they cut off the credits. You didn't get to see. It's like Paul Drummond, by the way, did the Alien viewing screens and computers. He's a friend of mine, and he's actually a professional graphic designer. So I made him work for me for free.
Well, the interesting thing about that had a commercial aspect to it. I mean, obviously, if you look at that, you think you're possibly watching a commercial.
Yeah.
The first thing, obviously, you're not going to think of a narrative storyline. What was going through your head?
Well,
I want to know this when you made that. What were you creating?
I didn't know.
You just threw images up?
Yeah, I took 3 weeks to build this really horrible alien flying saucer bridge set thing.
And how? In what form?
I found a bunch of trash and like, here's a piece of wood. Here's a here's xChopsticksx-Neo, nonlinear hyperdrama. No, here's a piece of wood. Let's take this styrofoam and hot glue it to it. Let's take this cardboard and slap that on there too. Let's take some. I mean, if you look there, like that's all done with like random paints and stuff that I found in a corner.
So in a way, the building of the machine was driving what you put on the screen. Is that correct? It's almost a backwards. Normally you have a script or you have some idea of what you're going to do. You built something and then decided to create something from the building of that?
Well, what I did was I created the set, and I knew I wanted to do a stop motion thing with aliens, and I had the clay, and I didn't know what I was animating. So I got as far as animating them to pushing the buttons and on the computer screen, and then I just left. I went off. I took a break. I went to a vending machine. I got a bunch of snacks, including a Rice Krispies treat, and I'm figuring, why don't I just put a Rice Krispies treat in there, just for the sake of putting a Rice Krispies treat in there, proving that someday I can make commercials.
See, there it is. It was a Rice Krispies cake. Well, you know the beauty of experimental filmmaking? It is what it is. It means something. Each individual gets something out of it. So let's move on. This has a more conventional name, Ghost Story Chorus, but I can guarantee, knowing you, that this will not be conventional, will it?
Well, I don't know. It's an attempt at horror, or vague attempt at horror. It's actually, a lot of people, when they see it, they think it's a ripoff of the work of Hideo Nakata, who really, I keep watching his work, I want to like his work, and the man really should not be making movies anymore.
You'll have to tell us a couple of his films, because I'm not familiar with his films that I'm aware of. But let's take a look at this, because we do have a time constraint.
All right.
And I want to talk about him, because he seems to be somebody you're very interested in, his films.
I want to like his work. I can't like his work. He's terrible.
Well, you mentioned him enough, so you must like something about it.
Well.
Ghost Story Chorus. Well, it's obvious there that somebody is being pursued by something, we think. Talk a little bit about what you had in mind there.
All
and
right.
that is more conventional.
It is more conventional, and a lot of people thought I was referencing Sadako, who is from a movie called Ringu, and from the Ringu series, which has been adapted in America as The Ring. and Sadako's name has been changed to Samara. And a lot of people thought I was ripping off her because I have a ghost, a female ghost with dark hair, with hair in her eyes. And
when you say a lot of people, those are names that I'm not familiar with. Is that something younger people would be familiar with, or is that kind of a niche market too?
The movie The Ring was a fairly popular horror movie released in this country. An adaptation of the Japanese movie Ringu. Ringu was directed by Hideo Nakata. And they decided, let's bring Hideo Nakata over to direct the sequel. And the man can't direct.
He did direct the American version?
He directed the American sequel. He did not direct the first one. The first one was scary.
First one?
I have no clue.
Okay.
The first one was scary. The American first one was scary. The American sequel was not, because Hideo Nakata believes in holding his shots too long. So we'll have a shot of like, oh, this guy has been killed by Samara, so he has this twisted face, and we'll show it for like 10 seconds so you realize it's just a guy making a really stupid face.
Might that be a Japanese, obviously Japanese sensibility in filmmaking? I mean, because European filmmakers, that's interesting. A lot of European filmmakers came to America in the 30s and 40s and were utterly destroyed, and a small group of American filmmakers went to Europe and actually did well. So sometimes the transition culturally doesn't work.
Well, it's not the necessary Japanese style sensibility in general, because there is a heavy Japanese influence in this. I can't remember his name, but I don't know. The guy who directed The Grudge, I think I watched the original version. I watched the American adaptation he directed. It's a very scary movie. He's a Japanese director. He uses, Japanese editing style, and he made something very frightening. Hideo Nakata can't edit. But really, the inspiration of this work was my favorite director, my biggest visual inspiration, Hideaki Anno, and it's really more of I'm walking in mass art and the elevators scare me. I'm walking the elevator, at night, and the elevators I thought were scary, so I want to shoot a ghost movie here. And then there are several shots in here that are practically directly ripped off from the work of Hideaki Anno, particularly an anime called, and here's another long title, Neon Genesis Evangelion, which is one of my favorite anime. And his editing style, his angle choice is a major influence on mine.
What about lighting choice? I noticed in that it was a scary sequence with pretty much ambient lighting. Did you think about using any other lighting in that sequence, or did you want the effect of the ambient light?
I wanted ambient lighting, but I wanted it to be darker than it was.
Right, that's what I was
slightly darker. I try to go with, when I can, ambient lighting, because I adds more of a level of realism to it, even though it's not. It's a little bit more fantastical. I mean, the concept of she's being chased by a ghost, not many people would consider that realistic, but.
All right, I don't want to run out of time before we see the teaser trailer for your current project, so why don't we run that, and then we can talk about that.
All right, so he's telling us to roll.
I think we may not be quite ready. All right, let's start.
I don't want to go among bad people. I don't want to go among...
Oh my God.
All right, what happened here?
No, that's it.
That's it.
That's all that is. Like I said, it's a teaser trailer. It's a 10-second teaser for this project that I've been working on for so long. And
what you're doing, as far as watching this, it's something that you really need to go back and look at, this type of filmmaking, especially that teaser, that it's gone before you know it. And then you have to just say, what was I just watching there? So I don't know if we can run that one more time. It was pretty short, and we can talk about it.
All right. Basically, you folks at home, if you want to know what's going on in it, you really probably should take a tape and stick it in your VCR and hit record. Some of this stuff is there only for like a couple frames, but there's a reason there. This is a major project, actually, of mine.
And talk about it. Talk about what it is. you know, obviously I don't know if we assign it a genre, but talk about this project specifically and what your goals are, how you came up with it, what you want to accomplish.
Well,
I mean, your work, you will admit, is esoteric.
some of it, yeah. I'm a huge fan of Lewis Carroll, especially, or at least the original story. Lewis Carroll's stories, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and Alice Through the Looking Glass and What She Found There, which is this piece is. I originally did this thing. I wanted to do something with Alice in Wonderland. Especially considering the fact that most people, when they adapt the stories, you get Alice in Wonderland, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There, meshed into one story when it isn't one story.
You're talking about Alice in Wonderland being multiple stories.
Alice in Wonderland is... It's usually released... Okay, a lot of people release something under the title of Alice in Wonderland that's two stories. It's Alice in Wonderland, and it's Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There, which is a completely different book.
Mm-hmm.
Only one person who has ever adapted it. Can I forgive that? And that's American McGee in his video game Alice, because that takes place after Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. I mean, this is like... takes place when she's... like 18 or something like that, and remembering...
Mm-hmm.
And it's based off her past adventures. But this piece is kind of special. It took me a long time to figure out what the direction I was going with it in. It was originally titled The Alice Project, and what I did was I made 3 versions of The Alice Project. Version 0.05, which has only my actress for Alice in it. Version 1.0 beta, which is the first edit with the other actors in there, or some of the other actors. It's a total of 4 characters that are shown, but they've turned into 3 actors. And then there's 1.01, which is the final edit of 1.01 beta. And yeah, the trailer is very infuriating and maddening to cue because it's so horrifically short.
Yeah, it's very short. It's difficult to, I mean, it's difficult to discuss, obviously, because we see so little of it, but...
No, I can talk about some of it.
Is this going to be a combination of, like, what media are you shooting? What are you using? It's going to be graphics and conventional shots?
All DV.
All
Pretty
DV.
much all DV, except for there will be some still images in it. Because unfortunately one of my actresses is dead and has been for 80 years? I'm not sure.
She's been dead 80 years.
Yes.
So she's one of your actresses, but she's been dead 80 years.
Yes.
It is a ghost story.
It's not a ghost story.
Oh,
there she is, right there.
Who is that actress? And
that's Alice Little.
Alice Little.
Yes.
She's an American actress?
No, she's British, and she's not an actress. She was a small child. And she was the inspiration for Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. That's the real Alice.
That's the real Alice. My goodness, look at that.
And she's a character in my movie.
Well, I mean, it's absolutely, it's interesting what you're going to come up with. How long is it going to be?
I don't know yet. I'm still writing characters. I mean, the original Alice project that I made had an interpretation of the Cheshire Cat, Alice Little herself, of course. Alice Little's the only character so far who's keeping her name. They talk about a character who's based off of the White Rabbit. Mm-hmm. And then we meet a character who's an amalgamation of the March Hare and the Mad Hatter. And the thing is that Underground, which is the new title of the thing, the title comes from a couple different things. The MBTA will play, to a degree, will play a part whether they want to or not.
Well, that's going to be interesting for you.
Yeah. I won't get arrested, probably.
Wow. You know, they do have a police force.
Yeah, they do. But anyway.
That's part of guerrilla filmmaking. I mean, we did some things out of alignment that could have got us in a little bit of trouble possibly. So
Most independent filmmakers do.
You do, and I think that's the excitement of it. I mean, you're living the dream we're talking about here about filmmaking. I was going to ask you something. When I was a kid watching Alice in Wonderland, there was always the people saying that Lewis Carroll had had done that under the influence of drugs. Do you believe that?
No, but I do believe that he was attracted to small children. I do not believe he ever had a sort of physical relationship with them, but looking at his photography, I do believe he was attracted to small children. Oh, since also we have to go soon, I wanted to
about
plug
2.5
this.
minutes, yes.
2.5. Well, first I want to plug this. My address, my website. These are available from my website through the store, and they're hardcore and Indian, underground. Because this is the only
you
one
did
that
give a
exists
warning
in-
before on your website. You want to give that again?
My website kind of contains some stuff that's not necessarily acceptable for all children, so parents might want to check it out beforehand. It's a webcomic that's to a degree violent and uses some naughty words, and also, not all of my shorts. I don't really aim for a target audience, so while I consider a lot of my video work, probably all of my video work really family friendly, I have some people disagree with me as to what family friendly is and what words are family friendly and aren't.
All right, well, forewarned, right? It's forearmed.
Yes.
So what
But
I'd like to thank Sean Davis, our guest. He's a perfect example of living the dream, of taking your ideas and putting them onto film. This, I think, is an inspiration, too, for young filmmakers or filmmakers of all age who want to get out there and have something to say. Not necessarily making it for everybody. There's different markets for film. So with that said, I just want to tell you congratulations on coming up with some really interesting stuff. It's to me, it's experimental at its best. I don't know if you'd agree, but
well, with my work, there's actually, with most people, there are two selves. There's the self that observes and the self that is observed, and for me, there are three selves. The self that observes, the self that is observed, and the self, myself, that observes other people observing my work, and that self is self-loathing. So no, I don't really consider my work very good.
Well, we all question our work when we do it, but it's very interesting and it is very good. I'm Joe Conforti. This is the Film Connection. You can get more information on www.hockomockfilmfestival.com. 7 p.m. on Monday and Tuesday nights. You can watch these films and listen to discussion with the filmmakers. We'd like to thank all our supporters, our filmmakers, and our actors. Thanks for joining the Film Connection. We'll see you next week.
Au revoir.